Hello. Bam, ba-dam, ba-dam, ba. I have to show you this, the pipe. Right.
Often has been set on a stand. I don't want to call it a catafalque because Pope Francis specifically asked that his whole rite be
Reacting to the video, please.
simplified, no catafalque. So it's on a stand about to be carried inside this beautiful, beautiful basilica.
And if I'm not mistaken, just before his interment, the coffin will be placed for a few moments with the Pope facing the icon of Mary Salus Populi Romani, so that he can say his final goodbye to the Mary to whom he has entrusted himself and the world to so many times.
It truly is a simple coffin. It has a very simple cross engraved in it, a tiny coat of arms, and the seal of the Holy See.
I think it's being shown to the crowd, who, as you can hear, have applauded, and it's our final goodbye now.
Yep.
Before it's taken in procession into the basilica.
We hear the bells tolling. The Swiss Guards leading the procession.
Always present for the Pope's protection in every moment.
We're here at the Sistine Chapel Choir there. Accompany us as the coffin is being brought in procession into the basilica, going through the atrium now into the basilica, to be brought before the icon of the Salus Populi Romani, before being placed in the tomb that has been prepared. It's a simple tomb bearing only the inscription Franciscus and a reproduction of the late Pope's actual cross. There we're seeing the icon of the Salus Populi Romani in the chapel that will be next to where Pope Francis will be laid to rest.
vivit et credit in me, non morietur in aeternum. Non te salta verum tu parietes, et colles sicut agnio vivum. Ego sum resurrectio et vita, qui credit in me, et si mortus poerit vive, et omnis qui vivit et credit in me, non morietur in aeternum.
There we see the coffin before the Pauline Chapel, where the icon of Salus Populi Romani is found. And we have some children who are bringing a homage to the altar there, above which is the icon of Mary, recalling the flowers Pope Francis would bring in homage when he would go there to pray before an apostolic journey, or to give thanks, or to for special prayers in his many visits there.
I think these must be roses that people have brought, because they were single roses, white roses on long stems, and people probably brought those to lay on his coffin close to him.
I think there was a group of people holding them outside the basilica when the coffin was being brought up. And now he's,
As you said, he's saluting Our Lady.
and thanking her, I'm sure.
And now he's being taken close to the altar of St. Francis. The tomb is located just near there. And he'll be taken to the niche of the side image between, again, the Pauline Chapel and the altar of St. Francis.
Non morietur in aeternum. A facie Domini contremiscetera, a facie Dei Iacob. Ego sum resurrectio et vita, qui credit in me, et si mortus poerit vive, et omnis qui vivit et credit in me, non morietur in aeternum. Qui convertit Petra in stagna aquarum, et silicem in fontes aquarum. Ego sum resurrectio et vita, qui credit in me, et si mortus poerit vive, et omnis qui vivit
private celebration is now underway in the Basilica. And as it is private at this moment, we're going to conclude our broadcast here. And we'd like to thank you all for joining us, and all of us paying tribute to our dear Pope Francis. That is shown signing off here.
Yes, we do conclude this live broadcast here. Of course, please visit the Vatican News website, Facebook, Instagram, X, and YouTube accounts for coverage of all of these events. Thank you so much, Thaddeus and Francesca, for bringing your witness and your voice. And thank you also to our technician.
The world awoke on Easter Monday to shocking news from the Vatican. Pope Francis, the 266th leader of the Catholic Church, had died at the age of 88, just hours after appearing before thousands of faithful in St. Peter's Square for Easter Sunday celebrations. The pontiff, who had transformed the papacy with his humility and focus on the marginalized, returned, as Cardinal Farrell announced, to the house of the Father. Today, we explore the Pope's final hours, the traditions surrounding a papal death, and how Francis, true to his character, changed many of these centuries-old customs. No one could have predicted the sudden turn of events. Just 24 hours before his death, Pope Francis appeared before tens of thousands of Catholics gathered in St. Peter's Square for Easter Sunday Mass. Though visibly frail and in a wheelchair, he blessed the crowds, waving to the faithful as he was driven around the square, pausing multiple times to bless babies brought to him. His Easter message, delivered by an aide while he sat watching, called for peace in Gaza and Ukraine, condemning the great thirst for death seen in global conflicts. These would be his final public words to the world. Just hours later, at 7:35 a.m. local time on Easter Monday, Pope Francis died at the Vatican. The pontiff's health had been declining since February, when he was hospitalized for pneumonia in both lungs, a condition made worse by the partial lung removal he underwent as a young man in Argentina. Despite his struggles, few expected his death so soon after his public Easter appearance. BBC correspondent Davide Giglione described witnessing people running towards St. Peter's Square when the news broke, some openly crying in the streets of Rome. Jorge Mario Bergoglio's journey to the papacy was unconventional from the start. Born in Buenos Aires to Italian immigrants fleeing fascism, he worked as a nightclub bouncer and chemical technician before joining the Jesuits. Rising through the ranks, he eventually became the first non-European pope in nearly 1,300 years, the first from the Americas, and the first Jesuit to occupy the throne of St. Peter. During his 11-year papacy, Francis redefined what it meant to be pope. He rejected the traditional papal apartments, choosing instead to live in the Vatican guest house. He washed the feet of prisoners, embraced the disfigured, and advocated fiercely for the poor, migrants, and the environment. His final Easter message embodied his life's work, calling for freedom of religion, thought, and expression, while pleading for peace in conflict zones and aid for starving people that aspire to a future of peace. The death of a pope triggers a series of carefully choreographed events that have remained largely unchanged for centuries until Francis. Traditionally, when a pope dies, the Camerlengo, Chamberlain, verifies the death by calling the pope's baptismal name 3 times. When there is no response, the Camerlengo announces, "The pope is truly dead." The pope's fisherman's ring is then destroyed, symbolizing the end of his authority. The body is typically embalmed within 24 hours and placed on a raised platform called a catafalque in St. Peter's Basilica for public viewing. Traditionally, popes were buried in 3 nested coffins: cypress, lead, and oak, each symbolizing different aspects of the papal office. But Francis, consistent with his lifelong simplicity, rewrote these traditions. He approved plans for a less elaborate funeral and burial. Instead of 3 coffins, he chose a simple wooden coffin lined with zinc. He also eliminated the tradition of displaying his body on a catafalque, opting instead to remain inside the coffin with the lid removed for mourners to pay their respects. Perhaps most notably, Francis will be the first pope in over a century to be buried outside the Vatican. Rather than joining his predecessors in the Vatican grottos beneath St. Peter's Basilica, Francis will be laid to rest in the Basilica of St. Mary Major, one of Rome's 4 major papal basilicas. This choice reflects Francis's deep devotion to Mary and his desire to remain connected to the people of Rome even in death. The basilica sits in the heart of the city.
Starting tomorrow, this simple water hack can change your life. You may not know this, but the biological difference between overweight and lean people is not the number of calories you consume per day. It is the reason.
Accessible to all who wish to pay their respects. A fitting final resting place for a pope who constantly pushed the church to go beyond its walls and into the margins of society. As news of the pope's death spread, tributes poured in from around the world. World leaders, regardless of faith or politics, recognized the profound impact Francis had on global affairs. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen noted how he inspired millions, far beyond the Catholic Church, with his humility and love so pure for the less fortunate. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni of Italy remarked, "I had the privilege of enjoying his friendship," adding that Francis had asked the world for the courage to change direction. US Vice President J.D. Vance, who had met with the Pope just hours before his death, expressed that his heart goes out to the millions of Christians all over the world who loved him. The Archbishop of York, Stephen Cottrell, remembered Francis as both a holy man of God who was also very human, witty, lively, good to be with. In the coming days, the College of Cardinals will gather in Rome to elect Francis's successor in a process known as the Conclave. After a 9-day mourning period, the cardinals will enter the Sistine Chapel, where they will remain sequestered until they elect a new pope by a 2/3 majority. When a decision is reached, white smoke will billow from the chapel's chimney, and the famous announcement, Habemus Papam, we have a pope, will ring out across St. Peter's Square. The new pontiff will face the challenging task of following a pope who transformed the papacy and who remained, until his final Easter message, a voice for peace, compassion, and care for the most vulnerable. Pope Francis's death during this Easter season and Jubilee year, when millions of pilgrims are expected to visit Rome seeking forgiveness, adds poignancy to an already solemn moment. The pontiff, who famously said he came from the ends of the earth, changed the Catholic Church and touched the hearts of believers and non-believers alike. As the bells of St. Peter's toll in mourning and the faithful gather to say farewell, Francis leaves behind a legacy that challenges us all to, as he often said, build bridges, not walls, and to remember those at the margins. For a man who chose the name Francis after St. Francis of Assisi, the saint of the poor, his final journey maintains the simplicity and humility that defined his papacy. In death, as in life, Pope Francis continues to teach us about the essence of faith and service. In the coming days, millions will watch as cardinals gather for the conclave that will select his successor. Who will be chosen to follow in Francis's revolutionary footsteps? And how will the Church continue to evolve in our rapidly changing world? We'll be bringing you exclusive coverage of the papal funeral and the historic conclave that follows. This is a pivotal moment not just for Catholics, but for our global society. If you found this insight into Vatican traditions valuable, please hit that subscribe button.
Oh, you have to subscribe to this guy, don't you? You have to subscribe to the man. Subscribe high might be before African Pope. Why they are Pope like a black one.
I'm telling you, you won't find this price anywhere else. This product is free from fragrances, alcohol.
In a world of uncertainty, one decision will shape the future of 1.4 billion people. Behind closed doors, in the hallowed halls of the Sistine Chapel, the most consequential election on earth is about to unfold. No campaigns, No debates, no polling data. Just 130 men in red robes, sworn to secrecy, deciding who will lead the world's oldest, continuously functioning institution into an uncertain future. This is the papal conclave, where tradition meets politics, faith confronts power, and where the next leader of the Catholic Church will emerge when white smoke finally rises above the Vatican. For nearly 2,000 years, the selection of a pope has been shrouded in mystery and spiritual significance. Throughout history, papal elections have shaped world events, triggered wars, forged peace, and redefined the relationship between humanity and faith. Today's process, while modernized, still carries the weight of ancient tradition. Cardinals enter the Sistine Chapel beneath Michelangelo's masterpiece of creation and take a solemn oath of secrecy. The doors close, the outside world waits, and the phrase extra omnes, everyone out, marks the beginning of an election unlike any other on earth. For the first time in history, fewer than half the cardinal electors are European. With 80% appointed by Pope Francis himself, this conclave represents a church that has dramatically evolved. The power center of Catholicism has shifted toward the global south, Africa, Asia, and Latin America, where congregations are growing rapidly while European churches sit increasingly empty. This geographic shift brings new perspectives, new priorities, and new possibilities for the direction of a church often criticized for moving too slowly in a rapidly changing world. The conclave itself is a spiritual battleground, not just between conservatives and progressives, but between various visions of what the church should be in the 21st century. A bastion of unchanging truth, a field hospital for the wounded, a prophetic voice for the poor and marginalized, a defender of tradition against secular modernity. Pope Francis's decade-long papacy transformed the public image of the Catholic Church. His famous, "Who am I to judge?" comment regarding gay Catholics signaled a shift in tone, if not doctrine. His passionate advocacy for migrants, criticism of unbridled capitalism, and urgent calls to address climate change positioned the Church as a moral voice on pressing global issues. Yet Francis also faced fierce internal opposition. His attempts to allow more local decision-making, greater roles for women, and pastoral flexibility sparked accusations that he was undermining church teachings. The cardinals who gathered to elect his successor must decide: continue this path of reform or correct what some see as dangerous deviations. Cardinal Pietro Parolin stands as the quintessential Vatican insider. At 70, this soft-spoken Italian diplomat served as Secretary of State, effectively the Pope's Prime Minister, throughout Francis's papacy. His extensive diplomatic experience includes delicate negotiations with China and Vietnam, opening doors for the Church in hostile territories. Parolin represents continuity with Francis's global vision, yet with a more measured approach. He prioritizes dialogue and diplomacy over doctrinal battles. Critics worry his pragmatism might sometimes compromise Catholic principles. Supporters praise his ability to engage with an increasingly secular world without abandoning core beliefs. Though the papacy was Italian for nearly 5 centuries until 1978, Parolin faces the reality that the Church's center has shifted globally. Still, bookmakers consider him a frontrunner, despite the old Italian saying, "He who enters a conclave as pope leaves it as a cardinal." Hungary's Cardinal Peter Erdo offers a different European perspective. This brilliant canon lawyer, twice the leader of Europe's bishops' conferences, represents a more traditional approach to doctrine while maintaining diplomatic skills. At 72, he navigated Hungary's complicated political landscape under Viktor Orban while preserving church independence. Erdo has strong connections with African cardinals and has worked extensively on Catholic Orthodox relations. His conservative views on family issues appeal to traditionalists, but some question whether his approach can engage younger generations increasingly disconnected from organized religion. Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle has been called the Asian Francis, and with good reason. This charismatic 67-year-old Filipino shares Francis's dedication to the poor, migrants, and social justice. His pastoral experience as Archbishop of Manila contrasts with Parolin's diplomatic background, emphasizing direct connection with ordinary Catholics. Tagle's warm personality and communication skills have made him a beloved figure globally. The Philippines' 5 cardinal electors could
Let's say you have 50K in cash and you use that to buy a $500,000 property to live in, which means
globally. The Philippines' 5 cardinal electors could form a significant voting bloc, and Tagle's selection would acknowledge Asia's growing importance to Catholicism's future. While doctrinally orthodox on issues like abortion and euthanasia, Tagle has called for the Church to soften its approach toward gay people, divorced Catholics, and single mothers. His election would signal continuity with Francis's compassionate approach, while making history as the Church's first Asian pontiff. From Africa, where Catholicism is growing faster than anywhere else, 2 powerful contenders emerge. Cardinal Fridolin Ambongo Besungu of the Democratic Republic of Congo represents a church thriving amid persecution. At 65, this cultural conservative firmly opposes same-sex unions, yet advocates religious pluralism, saying, "Let Protestants be Protestants and Muslims be Muslims. We are going to work with them, but everyone has to keep their own identity." Some cardinals wonder if this approach fully embraces the Church's evangelical mission. Others see it as realistic engagement with a multi-religious world. Cardinal Peter Turkson of Ghana would make history as the first African pope in 1,500 years. This 76-year-old intellectual was once the bookmaker's favorite in 2013 when Francis was elected. Known for his energetic presence and surprising background as a funk band guitarist, Turkson bridges conservative theology with progressive social positions. Unlike many African prelates, he has opposed criminalizing homosexuality, stating in a 2023 BBC interview that homosexuality should not be treated as an offense. This nuanced position, maintaining traditional teaching on marriage while opposing discrimination, represents the complex balancing act the next pope must perform. Beyond these frontrunners, several dark horse candidates could emerge as compromise choices. America's Cardinal Robert Prevost spent years as a missionary in Peru before Pope Francis appointed him to oversee the selection of bishops worldwide. At 69, this reformer combines American organizational skills with Latin American pastoral experience. However, Americans have historically been considered too politically complicated for the papacy. Italy's Cardinal Pierbattista Pizzaballa captured global attention during the Israel-Hamas conflict, when he offered himself as a hostage in exchange for kidnapped children. As Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem since 2020, this 60-year-old has deep understanding of Christian-Muslim-Jewish relations, increasingly critical knowledge in today's world. Guinea's Cardinal Robert Serra represents the traditionalist wing of the Church. At 79, this son of a fruit picker rose to become the Vatican's liturgy chief before retiring in 2021. Often seen as opposed to Francis's reforms, Serra appeals to cardinals concerned that the Church has compromised too much with modernity. Canadian Cardinal Michael Cherney, like Francis a Jesuit, founded the African Jesuit AIDS Network and has worked extensively with refugees. This 78-year-old progressive currently heads the Vatican's Social Development Office. But some doubt cardinals would elect consecutive Jesuit popes. When the cardinals enter conclave, they're cut off from outside influence. No phones, no internet, no media. They pray, discuss, and vote in strict secrecy. On the first afternoon, they cast one ballot.
When I started drinking warm water to help me lose weight, my friends laughed at me. But when they saw how fast I was changing, they started doing it.
They cast one ballot. Subsequently, they vote twice each morning and twice each afternoon. A 2/3 majority, currently 87 votes, is required to elect a pope. After each inconclusive vote, the ballots are burned with chemical additives to produce black smoke visible from St. Peter's Square. When a pope is elected, white smoke signals the decision to the world. Hours later, a cardinal announces from the central balcony of St. Peter's Basilica, Habemus Papam, we have a pope. The newly elected pontiff then appears to deliver his first blessing to the city and the world. The stakes couldn't be higher. Will the next pope continue Francis's path of mercy and inclusion? Or will the pendulum swing back toward tradition and doctrinal certainty? The new pope will inherit a church facing massive challenges, ongoing sexual abuse scandals, declining vocations, cultural irrelevance in the West, and explosive growth in the global South, with too few clergy to serve burgeoning communities. He must address internal divisions threatening church unity, engage with other faiths in an increasingly pluralistic world, and articulate Catholic teaching on contentious issues from gender identity to artificial intelligence to climate change. No algorithm can predict the outcome. Even sophisticated AI struggles to forecast this ancient, secretive process where human politics meets divine. When the cardinal electors enter that conclave, locked away from the world, history tells us one thing for certain: expect the unexpected. The man who emerges as pope often differs dramatically from pre-conclave predictions. The words that will eventually echo from St. Peter's balcony, Habemus Papam, will mark not just a new chapter for Catholicism, but potentially a dramatic shift in global religion, politics, and culture. White smoke will rise, a man will emerge, and 1.4 billion Catholics will have a new spiritual leader. But which man? With what vision? And leading the church where? The world watches and waits as the most mysterious election on earth unfolds. If you found this story compelling, give it a thumbs up. Leave your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to share this video with someone who needs to know what's happening.
Okay. Whoa, is it cut out? Subscribe, whatever happened. I need to do the pipe. And hopefully it went well. I'm intermixhector. On the name of God, on the name of the Pope, on the name of everybody. Thank you very much. Bye.